Hello guys, I'm back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Belle was Genji and Hanzo's reincarnations, or just, Genji and Hanzo. So, in the last video we talked about how, after, Belle was basically, going on this little mission, and after being told that, he was reported to go back to the, Loki Familia, household or whatever, and when he arrived, he was told to basically go into Loki's office. After arriving there, Loki would basically ask him to go on a date with her, even though it's not technically a quest or, something of that sort. It's more of a personal request for her, which Belle would not really take lightly, and so would basically try to leave, as she would basically start, beg for him to basically go on a date with her. And after a few hours of basically trying to convince him, well, Belle would basically relent and decide to go on a date with her. She was pretty happy, and so they would basically get ready for their date. Currently, with the other Loki Familia members, they were basically cheering on, Belle and also Loki's relationship. Except for Bet. Bet is completely pissed off. Really pissed off. So yeah, let's just say Bet is currently foaming at the mouth. The other members were pretty cool. Sort of cool for eyes. I mean, she doesn't really like Belle. It's more like, she wanted to, fight him, but not as, maddening as, Bet over there. And as for, Lethea, even though she sort of had a crush on him, it's more like they sort of decided to go for, a brotherly, siblingly bond. Almost similar to, a brother and a sister, basically. And as for, Teode was really disappointed in herself for basically not trying to, mate with him right there and there. I mean, right there and, then. Because, remember, Amazon S, remember? So, yeah. So, after a while basically going through his clothes and basically picking out some outfits, he would decide to go for some winter clothing. Because right now is currently at the winter season, but thankfully not a completely blizzard-like storm. So thankfully it's just a normal-ish winter's month, I guess. So after arriving at their meeting place, they would see Belle would basically see Loki as they would start their little date. Basically going around town and basically stopping at a little park so they can basically eat their food and drinking some hot cocoa. And after a while basically talking with her and also realizing that he sort of started becoming a little bit more happy towards her, and more she's going to be well, he started becoming a little bit more flustered around here lately. But this is going to be the straw that basically breaks the camel's back, and she would basically tackles him into the snowy floor and would basically start to make out with him. Belle would basically decide to lead it into the kiss, as he would basically start to embrace it. And after a while of kissing, Loki would basically explain that they should probably go back to his apartment to basically do their little deed. After arriving back at his apartment, she would basically ask Belle if he named the bird, which I forgot to tell the description in the last time when Belle actually got the bird. Well, the bird's name is gonna be Yadagarasu. And apparently the bird's description basically almost resembles a crow, but instead of the typical dark feathers and, gold in his eyes or, bluish eyes or whatever, instead it had more of an albino-ish, color scheme, white feathers and, red eyes. And after picking the name for, the bird, they would basically start a lemon. Yeah, I basically, made that episode, last time I said that it's going to be an 18 plus, episode, so yeah. So, after a bit of making out, and also, not Izuku, I meant Belle. Oh, God. As Belle would basically, let's just say, does a BJ with her. And so would basically slam his, his 9-inch ding-dong up her, throat, and causing, Belle to basically, she blows, and so would basically explode all over her mouth. After doing that, she would basically be happy, and so would basically bring her back home, where she would basically talk about what happened on her date, except for the whole, lemon part. After basically supporting her, they would basically, decide to get some sleep because, that was a pretty long day. And so we basically ended off the episode right there. So yeah, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. And I sort of almost forgot about this little tidbit. Apparently, Freya also, was spying on their little date, and let's just say Freya was pretty much pissed. Yeah, and she would basically send, Otar, I think that's the name? Yeah, Otar to basically bring in a special Minotaur that she specially, trained. And so, we basically ended off right there, thankfully. So, I sort of forgot that part. I almost glossed over it, but thankfully, it's here now. And it's also pretty, relevant here. So yeah, let's talk about what happens next. So, as I meant Belle, god damn it. So, as Belle is basically going back to the Loki Familia household, and thankfully, it's no longer snowing. I mean, there's still a bit of snow left, but still. As after a while, basically trekking through this, almost snowy-ish, street, he would basically arrive at the Loki Familia household. After arriving there, he was told to go to the dungeon with the rest of, the Loki Familia, or more specifically, the main, members of the Loki Familia, like, for example, Eyes, Bet, Finn, things of that sort. So, after arriving to his little group, he would see Leafy out there basically, asking him how was his day and things of that sort. Almost something like a little sister, which he basically said that he was pretty much okay. Everybody can clearly see this, as they would think, are you sure they're not siblings? They would basically ask each other, as one of them specifically, Bet, would say this, let's get this over it. I don't want to see your damn face. As I meant Belle, goddammit. As Belle would say this. It seems so as usual, Bet, he would basically say. As one of them would say this. Whoa, you're usually super serious now, and what happened to you? Did Loki change you by perhaps? As Belle would say this. Maybe, he would say, as he would basically start to go into the dungeon with the rest of the, Loki Familia. So, okay, that was just a fucking spider. God fucking damn it, why? I hate insects, god, why? Why was there a fucking spider on my bed, why? Either way, thankfully it's gone. So, let's continue. So, after arriving at the, dungeon, they would basically start to go around, basically collecting these weird-looking crystals. Apparently, the reason why they're here is to get these weird crystals, because apparently they pay a lot. About the same, quantity as, getting, for say, a monster core, for example. They're basically, the same, level of currency. And so, they would basically start to grab them like hotcakes. After a while, basically, getting them, Belle would basically start to, go over, as he would basically see a large one, in fact. It seems about the size of a freaking house. As after seeing this, he would say, well, this is gonna be great. As he would basically charge up his, Genji's ult, as he would summon one green dragon, as he would somehow shatter the large crystal. After, grabbing the crystals, thankfully, he would basically start to go towards the little, cart that they usually put the, crystals in. But, unbeknownst to him, he sort of caused a bit of a catastrophe after doing that. So, after bringing them to the little carts, he would say, I think that's all of them. As Bet would say this. Are you sure? He would basically say, as he would say this. Yes, I'm sure, Mr. Bet. As Bet would say this. What did you say? As he would basically look back at him as he looked angered. As, Belle would just glare at him with his one, green and bluish eye. Would basically, under his visor. Just imagine that. As Bet is basically, glaring at him. As for Belle, he's also glaring back. As, Currently, with, some of the other members, one of them would say, I think we should probably stop it, said, Finn, as one of them would say this. No, no, just let them do it. Besides, I mean, it would just be a great idea for him to, beat, wait for a second, goddamn, beat spent butt. Like one of them would basically say that. I meant to say that. As, Finn would say this. Why would you say that? As, what's your name? Rivia? Yeah, Rivia would say this. Yes, I do agree. As, Finn would say, what? Please don't! As currently with Bell and also, Bet again. Bet is basically, getting ready into his fighting stance as Bell would basically wield up his, Kodachi, as you'd say this. I'll be fighting with this. Because it seems that you're more of a, let's just say a brawler and a brute. As you would say this. Why you? As you would basically started charging towards him with blinding speed, as you would get ready to punch him. But before the punch can, connect, a large explosion would basically happen, basically above them. As all of them would basically start to move away, as one of them would basically bring in the cart and basically get away from the, little, crater that was created by a large-looking Minotaur wearing armor and wielding two battle axes. As Bell would say this, what the? As, Bet would say, what in the? As you would basically get ready to, gets ready into a battle stance, as the Minotaur would roar, as he would start to charge over towards Bet for some odd reason. As Bet would basically, look back, as you would basically dodge out of the way. The Minotaur seems to be targeting him specifically, as Bet would say this. It seems that Bet is being targeted. Oh well. As he would basically, charge up some of his arrows, as he would start shooting them. He would basically shoot 3 arrows right towards the Minotaur, as the Minotaur's armor would basically, deflect it. As he would say this. Well, that's some tough armor. Wait for a second. He would say, well, that was some tough armor. As he would basically gets ready his, bow once again, as he would basically start aiming it at the little, blinding spots. What do I mean by this? Well, the joints of some armors, well, they're not really covered by, chainmail. So, thankfully, Bell would basically, shoot at those, little, joint parts, causing the, Minotaur to basically start howling in pain, getting some of his, shoulder, his shoulder joints to basically be stabbed, and one of them, or at least one of the arrows, would basically shoot towards his, armpit. And apparently, the armpit is actually where you actually control your arms, and apparently it has so many nerves that it actually acts as, the actual, the, I guess you could say, controller of the arm, and without it, you're basically fucked. You no longer have the ability to move that arm anymore. So, after, doing that, the Minotaur's arm would just be, a limping limb. And so would cause the axe to basically drop and basically chop off a bit of his, hoof, which he would also scream in pain. As the Minotaur would obviously look towards, Bell, as it seems to hesitate. But instead, instead of actually attacking, it just looks at him. As it would look back at, it would basically look back at Bet, as Bet would basically, charge towards the Minotaur, as the Minotaur would basically use his, his one good arm and basically start attacking it with his, large battle axe. Bell would basically, just look at this, as he would say, well, that's a weird-ass Minotaur. As he would say, guess I should better do this instead. As he would basically, grabs his, large katana, as he would basically charge up Genji's, ult, summoning in the large green dragon, god dang it, as the large green dragon would charge towards the Minotaur, as the Minotaur would get a slam, or at least a full brunt of the attack, causing it to basically break a bit of its armor, more specifically, its chest armor. As when Bet saw this, he would say, alright, it's time for me to go all out, as he would basically start to burst into flames, or more specifically, his arms start bursting into flames. Just imagine Hinata's, Lion Fist technique, but except, it's made out of fire instead of blue chakra. As it would Bet would basically start charging towards it, as you would start starts JoJo punching it, like similar to Star Platinum. And after a while of that, he would create one massive punch that literally causes a bit of a, earthquake. After doing that, the Minotaur would be flung towards Belle, as Belle would say this. Alright. As he would basically start, going into a stance, as he would charge towards the Minotaur, as he would slice through the Minotaur's, torso and ripping it apart from its, bottom half, causing it to scream in pain and turn into dust, turning into a large-ass monster core, about the size of, about the size of Belle's head. After doing that, Belle would say this. So, are you exhausted? As you would say this. Would I ever? As you would basically say, as, you would just look back at Belle as you would say this. I mean, that was nice. Thanks for helping me. As you would say this. Nice for helping me too. As you would basically, start to, pat a bit of his, you would basically pat a bit of his, shoulder, causing a bit of dust to basically get away from it. As after doing that, Belle would basically grab the monster core, as he would say this. Let's just say this thing is going to be a bonus. As he would say this. Yeah. So who's splitting it? As you would say this. How about 50-50? As you would say this. Sure then. He would basically say as you would start to leave, going back to the, entrance of the dungeon. Sorry about that. So, after arriving back at the, dungeon's, entrance, they would see the rest of his, friends and group, aka the Loki Familia. After arriving back to the, guild, they would basically, present the large-looking crystals and the large-ass monster core, which, let's just say, the Loki Familia's profits are currently skyrocketing after, ever since they got those, those two different things, aka the large monster core and the large, amounts of these weird-looking crystals, which, apparently, these crystals are actually made for, for making mana potions and, magic potions, apparently, which actually kind of made sense to Belle, because he actually did touch one of them and sort of felt a bit of, bit of his power increase. But either way, Belle would basically, get a lot of the money and would basically get a split of the, of the money from, the monster core. And he would basically split with, Bet, because after all, they did defeat the, monster together. So, let's go back to Freya right now. Freya's there basically angry, and she would basically say, so he actually defeated it. I mean, I was pretty impressed. But still, he did defeat it. She would basically look up at, Oter, as she would say this. You useless. As she would basically, throw a book at him, as he would basically lay down, as he would say this. I'm sorry, Lady Freya, for my failure. As she would say this. Whatever. Go to a mission or something. Do a lot of them. I don't want to see your face right now. She would basically say, as he would say this. Yes, Miss Freya. As he would basically start to leave. Freya right there is basically, just completely angry. She's basically sitting on her little throne as she would say this. He defeated it. I mean, it made sense. She would basically sigh as she would say this. Soon, Belle, you'll be all mine, and not hers. That damn Fletch. As she would basically start to become a little bit angry, as the rest of her followers were basically just like, why did we even join this rebellion in the first place? As all of them would realize, oh yeah, the Tatas. All of them would just agree in sync. Except for the girl, members, they would just say, yeah, she's pretty much a jealous bitch, they would basically say in their minds, but either way, they would basically go back to their, to their normal-ish business. As for, Freya, she would say this. Soon, Belle, you'll be all mine. And I'll make sure of that. I'll just need to get some help. She would basically start to smile sadistically, as she would say this. I should just bring in some help from another familia. She would basically say, as After smiling, she would basically look back at a little photo of Belle, which she somehow took without his permission. Apparently, she, used one person, or more specifically, a person with some sort of weird ass skill, which was pretty specific. Apparently, this skill allows them to basically create, instant paintings, which allows them to basically capture images and spy on people. After using it on Belle one night ago, which was the night of Belle and um the night of Belle's and also Loki's date. One of them would basically bring a photo to Freya as a request, and so after getting this photo, this is the only thing that she cherishes about him, and also many other things. Piece of paper. Piece of piece of hair. No, either way. Either way, they would, she would basically, look back at Belle with her, magic, as she would say this: "Soon, Belle, you'll be all mine, all mine." So we go back to Belle, basically, going back into his little apartment as he's currently feeding his bird, Yadagarasu. Yadagarasu is currently, just looking around, basically having a bit of fun in his room, as Belle is basically trying out his, brand new, ability of his, which he started, learning how to basically almost, basically it's like, using a drone in Far Cry. Or, Far Cry Primal with, the bird, basically similar to that. But except, it's kind of like a, radar thing. Like, if he's like, if the bird is far away, he can basically sense it and almost feel its, his situation right now. Like, for example, if the bird is currently over, like, a abandoned camp, he's able to, feel it as well. And basically see how many people there. Basically, it's like, Far Cry Primal's, bird. So, yeah. So, after trying that out, he would say, "You certainly are useful, Yadagarasu." As he would basically, tell Yadagarasu to perch on his shoulder. As after doing that, he would basically say this: "Now, here's your little treat." As after getting a little bit of kibble, or, bird seeds or whatever, as Yadagarasu would basically start to, feed itself with, by, Belle's hand. Basically, she's, like, he basically grabbed a piece of, like, you basically get it. And so, after doing that, he would basically put Yadagarasu in his cage and put some water there so he can drink. He would basically start to leave to basically go on a little shopping spree. Mostly to get some new clothes and some groceries. So, after a while basically shopping for some new clothes and some groceries and some other trinkets, like for example, a new, wait for a second, a really nice necklace, which he was planning to maybe, give it to a certain Loki. So, after arriving back home, he would basically put those groceries in a, I guess you could say like a medieval fridge, which is basically like, just a metal box with, some runes that basically say cold, which allows it to basically, preserve their food. Basically just like, a fridge, but magical, basically. So after putting them in the, little, like, I guess you could say like fridge, and also putting the other stuff there, he would basically grab the necklace, as he would basically start to bring it to, Loki. So, currently with the Loki Familia, apparently, almost every member there are basically, just, talking to themselves, and one of them would say this: "So, have you heard?" As one of them would say this. Heard of what? As one of them would say this: "Well, apparently Bet and also Belle, they sort of defeated the, a weird looking minotaur." As one of them would say this: "Yeah, you heard?" As he would say this: "Yeah, sort of. They're mostly mumblings to me, or rumors." As one of them would say this: "Apparently it's not a rumor, and apparently they got a really big ass, monster core from that, and apparently they sort of work together." As one of them would say this: That's like, wait for a second, what is that meme? that is scientifically impossible, one of them would say. Just imagine that meme from, like, the Invader Zim movie. It's just basically like that. So, as one of them would say this, like, all of them would just look back at him as you would say this. What? Like, it's completely impossible. I mean, seriously. Like, both of them are basically like oil and water. Like, seriously. They're basically like fighting all the time. As one of them would say this. But it seems they sort of decided to go for a much more important path. To basically start working together. After all, they basically are teammates. At the time, at least. As one of them would say this. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. As one of them would say this. Bet actually working with someone? I think the world is ending. As one of them would say this. Oh, shut up, you damn dork. He would basically punch him right in the head. As he would say this. Hey, what was that for? As he would say this. Ugh, either way. Wait a minute. Where is Bet right now? As one of them would say this. Well, Bet is currently on another mission in the dungeon, apparently. As one of them would say this. Yeah, it seems so. Currently, with Belle. Belle has finally arrived back at, the Loki Familia household as he would open the door, as several people are basically looking at him, seeing that he's holding some sort of weird present. As one of them would say this. I'm guessing that's for Loki. As one of them would say this. Ooh, I didn't know that Belle actually has a heart. As one of them would say this. Yeah, it seems so. And, wait, I thought you actually heard about that, the whole date thing. As he would say this. Wait, they gone on a date? As one of them would say this. Yeah, it seems so, said a girl. As one of them would say this. Yeah, and it was pretty surprising. Yeah, and I thought that she was a lesbian or something. As, the girl would say this. Maybe bi? As she would say this. Doubt it. As one of them would say this. Alright, stop talking about our goddess's sexuality, for God's sakes. So, we go back to Belle. Belle is basically going through the halls of the Loki Familia mansion as he would arrive at Loki's, office. After arriving there, he would basically knock on the door 3 times. And no response. Belle would basically open the door as he would see a tired and sleepy Loki. She's basically fully asleep as she seems to have, several bottles of, alcohol basically right beside her, and in the other side, a stack of paperwork. After seeing this, Belle would basically laugh as Belle would basically decide to just leave a note. So, Belle would basically put a note there saying, here's your little present, my sweetheart, from Belle. And so would basically put it right next to, Loki, as Belle would basically, look back at Loki as he would say this. Typical sleepyhead. He would basically say this, as Belle would basically, go towards a little, area, as he would ask to, get some, blankets from, a random member of the Loki Familia. After complying, he would be given the blanket, and so would basically put it over, Loki. As after doing that, he would basically kiss, Loki's forehead. After doing that, she would basically start to blush in her sleep and start to smile, as Belle would say this, in a whisper. He would basically whisper in her ear, as he would say this. Good night, my lovely little Loki, he would basically say, as he would basically start to leave, as after doing that, we go back to Loki. Loki has fully woken up a few hours later, as she would say this. Alright, I'm awake. She would basically look all over herself, as she would say, who put a blanket on me? As she would see the little present on him. Like, the present on, on her desk, as she would say this. A present? She would basically look at the, note right beside it, as it would say, here's your little present, my lovely little, Loki, signed by Belle. As after seeing this, she would say, I wonder what it is. She would basically start ripping the, wrapping paper with ease, as she would see the box. As she would start to open the box and see a beautiful looking necklace with a heart-shaped ruby in it, with the, actual chain and also the, the actual metal surrounding the, heart-shaped ruby was basically in a silver color. As she would say, as she would basically start to cry a little bit, as she would say this, "Thank you, Belle." She would basically start to, wear it as she would say this. It looks so nice. She would basically go into, a mirror as she would basically start to test out the, the little, necklace, as she would say this. It's so beautiful, but it's not really my style, but I don't want to go, I don't want to, to go to waste, as she would basically start to, try it a little bit, out more with some other outfits. And after picking one outfit, which seemed to be her, dress from the, just imagine like the dress that she wore in, in the anime, more specifically back when she was, in the, goddess and, god's beating, I guess you could say, with the other familias. Just imagine it just like that. After wearing it, she would say, "I certainly look beautiful." She would basically start to, giggle to herself as she would say this. "Thank you, Belle. Thank you for this little gift." As she would realize, wait, if he did give this to me, then I should have gave him something as well. I mean, I don't want to just get gifts from him, and don't repay him. I mean, it makes sense. After all, we are dating. As she would basically start to panic a little bit, as a person would basically go inside. As this person was Leafia. "Hey, Loki, what do you do?" As she would see Loki basically wearing the cute little dress and the, heart-shaped necklace on her, on her neck. As she would say this. Are you going on a date with, Belle, with Big Brother Belle?" She would basically say, as she would say this. "Well, not really. I mean, he did give me this necklace as a present." As she would say this. "It looks beautiful, and I didn't know Big Brother decided to give you that." As she would realize, wait, you call Belle Big Brother? As she would say this. "Yep, I mean, she would basically start to rub the back of her head," as she would say this. "Yeah, I mean, he did help me, though, and especially with my confidence." She would basically say, as she would basically, put a shoulder on, Leafia's face, not really, put a, hand on Leafia's shoulder, as she would say this. "It seems so, Leafia. Now, I think it's better for you to go back to sleep. And also, I should probably get some sleep as well." As she would say this. "Alright, Miss Loki." As she would say this. "Don't worry. Just call me Loki, okay?" As she would say this. "Oh. Okay then, Loki." As she would basically start to leave, as she would basically go back to her bedroom. And as for, Loki, she would basically take off her dress and would put back the, necklace into a little spot in her, drawer right next to her bed. And so, after, basically changing, which she mostly seems naked for some odd reason, and so would basically fall to sleep on her bed. And as for Belle, he would basically arrive back home completely tired after making a little bit of, dinner, and after doing that, he would basically go to his, little bed, and so would fall to sleep. So, yeah. So, that is going to be the end of this episode. And so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and would also really be, thankful for you to basically, comment and subscribe, and so you can help me. And so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!